You're listening to the Toolstation Western League podcast with Ian Knockolds and Tom Hiscott.
Welcome, listeners, to the 39th and the last edition of this season's Toolstation Western League podcast with me, Ian Knockolds, and I am delighted to be joined on the line for one last time this season by Tom Hiscott, the editor of the Western League Bulletin. Hello, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, doing well, thanks. Obviously, a couple of weeks since we've actually had some football now, but still, plenty going on in the Western League.
I know we strung this one out a little bit. I mean, we had quite a lot to talk about at the beginning of May because, of course, we had the Les Phillips Cup final, which is a showpiece game that we always love to talk about on the podcast. There are other few bits and pieces as well going on, which, of course, we're going to talk about. And then we had convention, which I'm very pleased to say that I survived, despite the best efforts of Radstock Town Football Club. And then, of course, most recently, we have had the announcement from the FA about the new league structure for the coming season, the 2019-2020 season. So really, we've been holding out to sort of bring the listeners this feast of footballing discussion, which will close our campaign. But I think, speaking on behalf of both you and I think it would be fair to say that we need to take our summer on the beach along with the rest of the players, don't we?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's dragged on a little bit, but it's always nice to see the end of one season, but obviously another one just around the corner. Absolutely
right. And of course, the weird and wonderful thing is that we should say that the arrangements for the National League system that came out on the 19th of May, of course, are provisional. So if we were feeling really keen, we could keep on doing this every week until tablets of stone have come down from the mount. But we really won't be doing that, listeners, because I would pack it in. And so would probably Tom.
You and me both, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely right. Right. So in that case, let's talk about a bit of football. That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
And we're going to talk about the Les Phillips Cup final. I really enjoyed covering it again with Ray Johnson, the manager of Hallam. We did a match commentary from the game. I thoroughly enjoyed my time and the hospitality of Sherborne. We'll come to that in a minute, but we kick off with a representative fixture. Now, I do love these games. It was a Toolstation representative side. I think I'm right in saying made up of First Division players, and they took on a Gloucestershire County side, Tom.
Yeah, indeed. So 50th anniversary of the Marcliffe Gloucestershire County League. So they put a side together, and as you say, there was a Western League side made up of members of mainly the First Division. 5 members of Keynham's league winning side were involved. And it took place at Stonehouse Town FC. And the Toolstation Western League side prevailed by 4-1. So good afternoon for them. Welton Rovers, Nick Beaverstock was in charge. And a pretty good afternoon. Adam Wright, obviously we know from his goal-scoring exploits this season for Cheddar. He scored twice in the first half. And there was also goals from Douglas Camillo of Bishop's Lydiard, and then one of Keynham's members, Tom Knighton, added a further goal in the final 15 minutes to complete the victory. So good afternoon, I'm sure was had there.
Well, of course, that was how we kicked off May, and only 2 days after that, we had, of course, the Les Phillips Cup final on Bank Holiday Monday. That game, as I mentioned earlier, was played at Raleigh Grove, the home of Sherborne Town, and it was a clash of the titans, wasn't it, Tom? It was the irresistible force meets the immovable object. It was Willand Rovers, our Premier Division champions, against Plymouth Parkway, of course, the team that ran them so close in our Premier Division title race.
Yeah, indeed, and it was Plymouth Parkway who prevailed. Obviously, Willand pushing for the momentous League Cup double. Not many sides managed to achieve that. So it was Plymouth who came out of the victory, a 2-1 win and 2 goals in the first half, proving to be enough for them. Adam Carter and Mike Williams both had really good seasons in front of goal, and they continued that in the final. Willand falling a little short, but obviously they'll be happy with over the moon with how their season went, not ending on the perfect stage. Brett Warby scoring in the second half for them, but they fell just short. Plymouth Parkway 2-1 victors, and the fourth time those two sides met in the season. I think we can probably say they were the top two sides that we saw in action this year.
Well, certainly the performance that I witnessed on the day would suggest that. I mean, it was an incredibly high standard of football. It was a fantastic advertisement for the Toolstation Western League. Always a lovely showcase occasion, but we were treated to two very different styles of football on the day. I mean, Willand huffed and puffed, but they couldn't blow the Plymouth Parkway house down in the end in the final analysis. So Parkway go home with some silverware to show for their first season in the Premier Division, and of course Willand have got the ultimate prize, promotion into the Southern League, to show for their efforts. But a beautiful day in Dorset, a wonderful occasion. For everybody who was there. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyable. Now, of course, one of the features that we cover regularly over the course of the season is our hot shots. We do love a goal scorer, and Tom, you can now bring the listeners the definitive list, can't you, of all of the league's hot shots.
I try my best. Yeah, it's always slightly contentious, some of the numbers floating around, but these are the final numbers that, as I have them and as I've seen them published in a few places. And so in the Premier Division, it was joint leading scorer in league games. We had Ben Bammont of Bitton who scored 28, and Jack Taylor of Bridgewater. He led the way for most of the season. He also got 28 goals, so those two sit top of the tree in the Premier Division. Luke Mortimer of Willand, obviously helping them to their promotion, their title win. He got 26 goals, and there was also 23 from Callum Demkiv, and 4 other players who reached over 20. I'll just give them a name check. Will Hailston, Matt Huxley, Tyson Pollard, and Jason Vincent. So fantastic seasons for them in the Premier Division. Going down in the First Division, it was a 2-horse race, and 2 Cheddar frontmen chasing the crown, and it was Adam Wright who finished on top. He scored 30 league goals. Adam Jones notching 29. So obviously those two deadly in Cheddar's fantastic season. Toby Cole of Wincanton managed to get 22. There was 21 for Callum Townsend of Ashton Backwell United, and then Sam Gregory of Radstock also reaching 20. So yeah, brilliant seasons for those 3 players as well. And then in all competitions, so this is obviously including all the cups and whatnot, it was Ben Bammont of Bitton who got 39 goals, we believe, in the end, to finish top of the pops, as we say. We've got Luke Mortimer of Willand on 37, Jack Taylor of Bridgewater on 33, obviously a lot of the same names, Adam Wright of Cheddar 32, Adam Jones of Cheddar 31, Demkiv of Westbury got 31, and there was also 30 for Matt Huxley. So those are I think that was 7 players who reached 30 goal mark this season.
Outstanding effort, and of course special credit should go there to Ben Bammont, who is our league's Golden Boot winner this season. Now, those are the goal scoring awards, but of course there were a number of other awards that occurred at this season's convention down in Plymouth, which I attended, at least in body, if not necessarily in mind, this year. And that, of course, was held between the 10th and the 12th of May. And it was a fantastic occasion. It always is. Great to see so many people from across the Toolstation Western League family. But, of course, it's a wonderful opportunity to celebrate those clubs and those people in our league who don't necessarily win the big trophies that we've just been talking about. So in particular, we will kick off with a particular recognition for the winner of this season's photograph of the year, and it is John Newport. He is, of course, very closely associated with Radstock Town. He is a previous winner of this competition, so he has some pedigree when it comes to taking excellent pictures at football matches. Don't take my word for it, listeners. The award was judged by last season's winner, Debbie Gould. So congratulations goes to John. And if you're interested in seeing all of the photographs that have been submitted for this year's award, please take a look at the Western League website. You will see on the homepage, if you scroll down, that there is a link to all of the entries that were submitted for this season's award. And of course, there is our gallery section as well, where a lot of pictures are taken by lots of different people across lots of the games every single weekend. So anyway, our congratulations to John Newport there. And he was actually presented with that award at the Les Phillips Cup final. And he was presented by the league's president, Brian Beer. But moving on to the awards that were made at the convention this year, and we'll kick off with the Hospitality Award. And in the First Division, the winners are Warminster Town. I can certainly speak from my own personal experience. You get an incredibly warm welcome at Warminster, and we do talk about them a lot on the podcast. Exceptionally well-run club and do a lot of great work on social media as well. So congratulations to them. And in the Premier Division, as if they didn't need to win another award, it is our league winners, of course, Willand Rovers there. We'll be sorely missed by the Western League, but we will wave them a fond farewell as they go on to better things in the Southern League. But they were our hospitality award winners in the Premier Division. Now, an award that's of particular interest for those of us who, I think particularly for groundhoppers, actually, because we do love a match day programme. The match day programme isn't dead, is it, Tom? I think that's something that fans do enjoy taking as a memento. I certainly do anyway.
My bedroom is full of them still from years and years of going to games and whatnot. So yeah, it's definitely something I keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's a great memento, particularly if you're going to a club for the first time, isn't it?
Absolutely.
To get that. Anyway, the winner of the Best Programme Award in the First Division was Chard Town. Now, I've got a feeling that you and I will be talking a little bit about Chard later on in this edition of the podcast. But anyway, congratulations to them for that achievement. And in the Premier Division, Buckland Athletic as well. They picked up the Best Programme Award in the Premier Division. Now then, moving on to the Most Sporting Team Award. In the First Division, that was won by a side that had a difficult season, but clearly went about their business in a particularly honourable way, and that was Portishead Town. So congratulations to them. And in the Premier Division, Cup specialists, they had an up and down season a little bit, but certainly some really good runs, not least in the Les Phillips Cup in the end. The Premier Division winners for the Most Sporting Team Award were Cadbury Heath. So congratulations to them. And we've got our Respect Awards as well, which follow on from the Most Sporting Team in many respects, because the Respect Captain Award, and we should say that these awards are sponsored by Ref Support. The Respect Captain of the Year goes to Robbie Cox, the captain of Portishead Town. The Respect Manager goes to Nathan Truckle, of course, a regular on the podcast. He is the manager of Wells City. And the Respect Club in the Western League this season is Bishop's Lydiard. So congratulations to all of them. Now, there were various other presentations, of course, made at the convention covering the top goal scorers, which you've just heard Tom talk through on this edition of the podcast, and of course the Les Phillips Cup, the First Division winners and runners up, and of course those in the Premier Division as well. Now we've talked them to death, but we really should give mention to the managers of the season. That's also a presentation that was made at the convention, and the manager of the First Division this season is John Allen, the manager of Keynsham Town. Of course, they secured promotion and the title as well, and it was an outstanding effort put in there by Keynsham, pushed all the way by Cheddar, but they fell just at the final hurdle, and Keynsham ploughed on. So consistency, as we talk about on the podcast every week, is the key to great performance in the First Division, and I think that was embodied by John Allen's Keynsham Town. And in the Premier Division, we couldn't really look anywhere else than Russell G., the promotion championship winning manager of Willand Rovers, who very nearly took his side to Wembley as well in the FA Vars. So an outstanding season for Willand Rovers, an outstanding season for their manager, Russell G., who has been there or thereabouts in the Western League for some time, and very much a deserved award there.
If you're thinking, Toolstation, I know they'll save me money, but do they have all the top brands? You know, DeWalt, Makita, Einhell, Stanley, Myra, Kudox, Nest and Santex. Yeah, they do. Over 15,000 trade quality products in the range from the leading brands with prices that are hard to beat. If you want a helping hand to save on your next job, try Toolstation. With over 300 branches, there's always a Toolstation near you.
But of course, one of the reasons we're bringing you this podcast today is that on Sunday, the 19th of May, the Football Association released the lineups for the 2019-2020 season, and we've seen some interesting additions and omissions, haven't we, in both of our leagues? Tom, do you want to take us through the points of note in the Premier Division?
Yeah, sure. It's probably more movement than I expected, but then it's always good to catch up on news like this. So yeah, in the Premier Division we've got 16 teams remaining, and there's 4 movements. Obviously, we've got Willand who've been promoted to the Southern Premier League. We've got Chipping Sodbury, who've moved over to the Hellenic Premier Division, and Shortwood obviously relegated, and they've also moved across to the Hellenic, the First Division. And obviously also Hengrove were obviously relegated. So we've got 4 new teams. We've got Keynsham joining from the First Division, obviously as champions. Street have come down from the Southern League following a few issues off the field for them. And then we've also got a couple of sides jumping over from the South West Peninsula League, which obviously is an interesting debate to be had. And that's Exmouth Town and Tavistock. And they will be joining the Premier Division next season.
Yeah, certainly Chipping Sodbury were the one we didn't see coming, were they? I mean, they'd had a good season in the Premier Division. I mean, they'd finished mid-table, but I mean, they held Plymouth Parkway on the final day, of course, which could have been crucial. So they've certainly been a competitive side in our Premier Division, and you can only imagine that there'll be a competitive addition to their new home now.
Yeah, I mean, they're moving across to staying in Step 5 is obviously important for them. I'm not 100% sure of the reasons for the move. I assume it's all to do with making the numbers up and what have you. But yeah, I think there will be a bit of a loss to the league. I think they did come on, as you say, last season, and it was always a tough place to go.
Now, what do we know about our First Division? And I know we've spent the last couple of weeks, haven't we, waiting with bated breath to see whether or not Cheddar would defy the odds and overcome the points per game barrier. But it didn't look like they did that, did it, in the end?
No, I think they fell just a little bit short. So it's similar to the Premier Division. We've still got 16 teams remaining in that division, and then 4 changes. So obviously, so we've got telephones. They've obviously received a reprieve, which is fortunate for them. Chippenham Park obviously no longer running, so they've left the league. Hengrove have joined from the Premier Division. We've got Almondsbury rejoining from the Hellenic League. We've also got a new team in Lebec United. I hope I pronounced that correctly. They were promoted from the Gloucestershire Counties League, and obviously Chard, as you mentioned, now expected to. I think they're in the move down to Step 7 in the Somerset Counties League, and I think the reason given was to do with their the ground grading and the failure to achieve the required ground grading. So no longer have Chard, who were obviously a fantastic team last season in the First Division.
Yeah, indeed, Tom. I mean, I know a lot of fans were sorry to see Chard go, and of course they've been members of the league for some time. But I think this issue to do with ground grading has been a sword of Damocles that's been hanging over them for some time, and it would appear that the FA's restructuring programme, this programme that's going to be going on, well, certainly started last season, it's going to be carrying on next season and the season after, has finally adjudicated on them, as of course the FA are now looking to move a number of clubs around. So hopefully they will get the opportunity to address their facilities, and hopefully they'll provide a strong club to come back through the county league, that Step 7 league, back into the Western League.
Yeah, I think it's obviously, as I said, Almondsbury obviously was a sideways move, but they've rejoined, so it'd be as you say, good to see Chard do likewise, and come back up if possible. And yeah, I think it is a sad time to lose them.
I look forward to our first opportunity to speak to Almondsbury manager next season, because of course they were laterally moved last season when they didn't finish in a position of relegation or promotion. They've been laterally moved this season, and it just, you do wonder, don't you, really, sort of how that impacts the club. I mean, we try and highlight the plight of the volunteers that make our clubs what they are, but when you're a manager trying to put together a side, or a player trying to make the time from work or family commitments to fulfill the fixtures, or a fan who wants to go and watch the games, actually completely changing the geographical territory within which you're doing that is quite a significant impediment. To have it done twice in as many seasons probably feels a little galling, but let's just hope they stay with us next time the FA roll the dice. And I think that's probably where we'll leave this edition of the podcast. I know a lot of the fallout from the announcements on the 19th has been, not only about how we feel about the clubs that have joined the ones that we have lost, but also what this means for promotion and relegation next season. Now, of course, it's not as simple as that, because we know that that the FA are restructuring, and that restructuring is quite dramatic. So in step 5, the level at which our Premier Division plays, we have got in the 2019-2020 season, we will have 14 divisions of 20 sides. In step 6, we will have 20 divisions across step 6. Of course, that's the level at which the First Division plays at, and they will be, our division, our First Division has 20 sides, but they could be as low as 14, depending on how many sides are available. The key really is that after the season, after the 2019-2020 season, promotion and relegation could easily be shaped by what the FA are looking to do in terms of restructuring the pyramid. And what we do know from the FA's announcements, and these documents have been sent to obviously the Western League and also the clubs that make up the Western League, that at step 5, the 14 divisions nationally we have today, there will be 16. So that's 2 brand new divisions. Now, one can only assume that means that those new divisions will need new teams playing in them, which hopefully will mean greater opportunities for sides finishing outside the top, outside of top place. Now, of course, that would be it's not much consolation to Cheddar, because that means they've got to go and do it all over again next season. But that's the nature of the beast. That would at least augur well. At step 6, there is going to be a reduction from the 20 divisions that we will have at the start of next season to 17 divisions. Now, those, of course, will be initially at least made up of 18 to 20 teams, dependent upon the league and the promotion conditions from step 7. So the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. It might be that there are greater opportunities for promotion from step 6, but it does look like that radical overhaul will mean, at least nationally, that a greater number of clubs could be vulnerable to being relegated. Now, how that pans out in our region, in the southwest of England, only time will tell. Certainly, the information from the Football Association at this stage in the proceedings isn't as clear as that. And of course, what we should have said about the new league lineups that Tom just took us through a few moments ago is that they're provisional, dependent on appeals. Now, quite whether any appeals will be successful it remains to be seen, let's put it like that. But it's certainly a very uncertain time, which is not particularly pleasant for any football fan. What we can be slightly more certain about is that the FA's guidance has been slightly more forthcoming when it comes to step 5. So I can read a statement that says that in the 2019-2020 season, step 5 will be required to promote more clubs than usual, and for 1 year less will be relegated from step 4 to step 5 to lessen the impact. So that's 24 mandatory promotions from steps 5 to 4, with potential for 7 further promotions via playoffs with the bottom clubs at step 4. So it's certainly in our Premier Division, there is an awful lot to be playing for. But of course, I'm very keen on talking about the law of unintended consequence. And whilst we might be seeing more clubs going from step 5 into step 4, which may or may not be a good thing, if you're playing at step 5, I'm not entirely sure we know where that's going to leave us. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if in the grand scheme of things, we still are lumbered in some way, shape or form with the points per game criteria that we've seen in recent seasons governing promotion in both divisions, it would be fair to say. But I hope that provides a little bit of information. Anyway, I mean, all of the information that we provided in this edition of the podcast is, of course, publicly available. So the listeners can do a bit of digging if they want, and that has been sent to the club. So if you're interested in finding out more, then your club secretary wouldn't be a bad place to start. Yes, well, that's an awful lot of administration and homework we've had to do in the final episode of the podcast. We talked about the football at the beginning, but we didn't really get much of a chance to talk about it at the end. But that's the nature of the beast. Tom, thank you very much for your time this season, and also for the huge amount of effort that you put into the bulletin. There's a huge amount of information every week there, not just about the results, but of course the league tables and the goal scorers as well. So on behalf of the Western League family, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for everything you do, not just for the league, but of course for me and the podcast as well.
No, it's a pleasure as always, and yeah, really enjoy doing it, and yeah, it's obviously keeps me involved, and yeah, keeps me up to date myself. So yeah, it's good fun. Roll on next season.
Well, not quite just yet. I think you'll need a little bit of a break. So, whilst Tom and I go and have ours, on behalf of us here at the Toolstation Western League podcast, I hope you've had a very enjoyable season, and we look forward to you hearing from us next season.